I'm going through it. I said, yeah, I don't know nothing about this. He said, man, y'all too tight. I see Big U signature. I see other signatures. I'm reading it. And what shook me was the police issued device to communicate with law enforcement in form of a BlackBerry. Why Kodak told him that though?
Because his statement is why.
Bro, what you mean?
Damn, Triple
Because
OD.
been 3
obviously
years.
you ain't going to court because you was going to court.
Triple
Every
OD.
time you go to court, they gonna let us know you going to court. So
I can't go to court for immigration if I got an open gun.
case, bull.
Can't go to court for immigration.
They will give you your time.
For years, Wack 100 has been screaming snitch, but now that 21 Savage published a wiretap, people are looking up that 2005 Fed deal gun case. What if all along he's been playing both sides? Let me explain what transpired. Imagine a man constantly yelling at everyone and then opening his wallet to reveal a police badge for a brief while, but everything could have been ruined in that second.
Why Kodak told him that though?
Because his statement is why.
That is not even the most absurd aspect. Regardless of whether it was or wasn't, it is the person who may have released the footage. People are claiming that 21 Savage leaked it, rather than merely sharing it in passing. He has reportedly been waiting for it, and you will not hold it against him because Wack has been smearing his name for years, accusing him of being a snitch, claiming that he worked with ICE only to keep his documents, and even connecting him to the entire YSL scandal. And on 21st, he largely dismissed it, made a few remarks, and continued on. However, if 21 actually dropped that tape, that was chess, not petty. After years of Wack subtly making fun of him on Clubhouse, he eventually retaliated without uttering a single word, as if he had had enough. Furthermore, it appears that Wack has been blaming everyone to avoid scrutiny throughout the years, and this is not even the first time that someone has claimed that Wack is connected to the federal government. It has been reported that Big U was indicted on RICO charges a few months ago. This is when things get wild. Big U called Wack 100 out on camera and claimed to be working with the FBI prior to turning himself in for the RICO case.
And I just want to say this to y'all. When they raided my houses and my property, they was asking about Wack. Wack, loose cannon, 600, and this internet stuff.
This is where things started to feel strange. Even before RICO made the news, before the arrest, before the paperwork, Wack knew he had phoned Big U and that his wife had sent a message saying something like, 911, you need to leave.
So yeah, after you got that message, after you got the message, you hit up Big U's wife. You said, sis, 911. One sec, let me get Solo. And you gave him a heads up.
What I tell him?
You said, one sec, let me get Solo. He needs to leave. Bad. In caps, all caps. He needs to leave.
I said so bad, right?
Yeah, full bad.
Bro, Wack was hitting up his wife before Big U was even placed in handcuffs. That is actually a setup rather than a warning. He made the call as if he knew the raid was imminent. It is also humorous, is not it? Wack tried to turn the tables on Big U after he was booked by posting recklessly on the internet and claiming that he was the one moving dirty and that he had a BlackBerry phone that he used to talk to the federal government. But all it actually accomplished was to raise more eyebrows.
I'm going through it. I said, yeah, I don't know nothing about this. He said, man, y'all too tight. I see Big U signature. I see other signatures. I'm reading it. And what shook me was the police issued device to communicate with law enforcement in form of a BlackBerry.
For example, how do you usually know first? How come you are never the one involved but always in the middle? It did not feel good to be a large used wife like that. A man seemed to be attempting to play both sides, warned by the man he just assisted in lining up. To avoid getting burned, stay near the fire. At that point, people's perceptions of Wack truly began to shift, as if he were not the watchdog he acts like. However, the events of today have their roots in an incident that occurred in 2005. It has been reported that Wack 100 and his brother were stopped in Texas. At first simply speeding, nothing crazy. Wack informs the police that they're going to a funeral in Oklahoma after they stop them and ask the customary questions. The officers then request that the vehicle be searched. No, says Wack. A K-9 unit was thus dispatched and sniffed out a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun. Everything is loaded. This is the portion that no one can overlook. Both Wack and his brother had prior criminal convictions, federal time, that is, off the rip. You do not ignore that type of case. That kind of arrest puts a stop to music careers before they even begin. However, Wack managed to post bail and returned to Los Angeles as if nothing had occurred. Then 2 years went by, quiet, no updates from the court, not a sound, until the lawsuit is abruptly dismissed, and not due to a technicality or a lack of proof. Literally, the court stated that it was dismissed for the sake of justice. Now stop, you already know that term does not appear in paperwork like that. If you have ever observed how the system operates, particularly with regard to convicts who possess firearms, this is not a request for mercy. Usually it indicates that they received something in exchange. Years later, Wack attempted to spin it by claiming that the search was illegal and that it was thrown out. However, that was capped. The court documents were open to the public. Improper method was not mentioned. The lawsuit was dismissed nice and tidy. What about the timing? This entire story is haunted by that particular part, because a few years later, Jack's former boss at death row, Suge Knight, began to face pressure from the federal government. The Hollywood Reporter claims that Suge Knight was mentioned in a gang injunction. His group was shattered, raids, wiretaps, and names and documents. However, Wack, no one ever brought him up, not once. Then the Main Street Crips became involved in that crazy Shaq-related kidnapping case, the one in which a man by the name of Back appeared in the transcripts, making calls and leaving messages. And you know who people have been saying was Back? Wack 100. Let us fast forward to the present. This individual, who acts as the moral compass of the streets, is all over the internet accusing Gunna, BG, Brick Baby, 21, and even Jay Diggs. To be honest though, that 2005 case does not support the picture he is giving. Unless you are extremely fortunate or have given up something, you cannot escape a federal gun charge as a felon with 3 illegal firearms in your trunk. And that is what it reminds them of when they see that police ID flash in a new video nearly 2 decades later. The question that has persisted since that case disappeared along with the badge and the meat: what did he exchange for leaving so clean? As you are already aware, Wack has been using the word snitch to develop his entire brand. His favorite insult is that one. When a rapper is arrested or enters a plea, what is the first thing that they yell on Clubhouse? In order to get Gunna to confess, he threatened to leak the 2-hour interrogation recording he had with her.
Give you some time, I don't know, 24 hours, 12 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 1 hour, I don't know. I'm gonna give you some time though, Gunna, for you to go ahead on and confess.
Talked while sitting there, never dropping it. He also came for BG, a man who claimed to have snitched after spending more than 10 years inside, but no paperwork. According to BG's former cellmate, BG held it down and never folded. Wack did not care though, he continued to speak. No invoices. Indeed, it functions on the surface. People who do not conduct much research might believe that he has some sort of moral compass. But who is listening? They became aware of the trend. When he is deflecting, what is the loudest? He turns every time he feels heat. Wack records everyone, man. Real ones do not move like that. Recording every discussion is not necessary unless you want to use or give it to someone. People are also beginning to learn that some of the rappers who Wack brought to Clubhouse ended up getting caught in the act. For example, Loose Cannon went on there, said too much, and later got jammed. People are also questioning if Wack was inciting dangerous speech. Did he intentionally make these videos go viral so that the prosecution could finish the job? Everything is beginning to feel well coordinated. From the way he incites arguments to the way leaks appear out of thin air when it suits him. Not all of it is evidence, but the pattern, it is difficult to ignore. You have to pause and take a close look at the pattern at some point. The fire may have been started by the leaked video, but it was not unexpected. It has been accumulating from the instance from 2005 that disappeared without a trace. He was aware of Rico before the federal agents even made contact. The badge is mentioned in the wiretap. How he documents individuals, it is deliberate, not merely disorganized. Additionally, it becomes increasingly apparent that he has been evading detection as more people go back through the timeline, because there would be paper trails if all of the people he accuses of snitching were actually following his instructions. However, he is the only one who consistently appears after charges are dismissed, people are exposed, or the feds already know too much. And that is what is unique about this. Asking what it means if he is a Fed is more important than simply demonstrating that he is. Does that mean that the stories we believe are false? Regarding the people we grant platforms to? Online, people make jokes about it, but it is no longer hilarious, not when people's lives are being warped by this kind of deceit. Wack has been accusing everyone else of being a snitch. People are now, however, staring sideways, asking whether the voice that was loudest in the room was wired from the beginning, because this entire game would have been compromised for years if he had been. And the most terrifying aspect, he is not hiding. He he is still talking outside, and his next statement could be the last straw that causes everything to